What's going on, everyone? Things are a little bit different today. Hope that's all right. So I wanted to do something a little bit different and chat a little bit about my past with respect to cars and my automobile racing. I think what's happening is I'm getting, more views and more subscribers to the channel, and people are discovering some of my old videos where I've talked about cars. And I've talked about my racing history a few times. I sort of sprinkle it in if the topic relates to something like that. I'll talk about my racing past. But anyway, I don't want to ramble too much. I want to get right into it and talk a little bit about my past. Okay, so let me take you back to about 1998, 99. My wife and I at the time were living in Renton, first house that we bought, and she was commuting downtown Seattle and I was commuting way up north to Kirkland, Washington. And the company that I worked for, their manufacturing facility, moved to Mukilteo, which is like 20, 30 minutes further up the road. So I was driving a horrible V6 Mustang convertible, like maybe a 95, 96, I think. Anyway, so we got rid of that to get this Honda Civic to save a little bit of fuel in my commute. She was taking the bus and I was the one driving. So we get rid of the Mustang and get this 1993 Honda Civic SI hatchback. And we're in the grocery store one day and I see this magazine on the magazine rack and it says Honda Tuning. And basically my car was on the cover of that magazine, all tricked out, drag raced out and all that stuff. So I'm like, what the hell? So I'm flipping through the magazine and I'm seeing all these crazy things that the import community is doing with these cars. And I'm like, what the hell? So I started getting into it and I started showing up to drag races in Seattle. So if you were around that sort of, import scene back in the late 90s, early 2000s, it was kind of a big deal. So what I saw was all these guys with cars like mine going drag racing. So I show up to one of the drag races just to kind of check it out. And I'm talking to all these guys and I'm meeting some of these people. And one of the guys was talking about the road course that was around the drag strip at Pacific Raceway, what used to be called Seattle International Raceway, just outside of Seattle. I'm like, there's a road course here? He goes, yeah, it goes that way. It curls around the trees and comes back up. And what he was saying is that you can do like track days and driver schools with like the Alfa Romeo Club, Porsche Club, BMW Club, Audi Club. They would all rent the track and they would do these like high performance driving days and track days where you can learn how to drive fast. And that's pretty much when it all changed, right? So I started showing up to these track days and started learning how to drive fast, and we'd have an instructor in the car, and there were points that you had to hit around a corner, apex and exit. And it just sort of blew me away. So I started modifying my car. And I'll try to get through this kind of quickly. But during that time, I was also doing autocross. I discovered autocross. I met a couple guys and they were doing it. And it was basically, if you're not familiar, autocross is like parking lot racing. So I lived up in Seattle. Boeing is a huge company, big parking lots. So SCCA or the local organizations would rent out the parking lot, set up little cones that you have to go around, and it's kind of slow speed, but it's kind of fun learning car control. So I started doing a ton of autocross, which led to, it wasn't scratching the itch. So I wanted to go a little bit faster, and that led me into SCCA Solo 1. So consider Solo 1 similar to autocross, but on an actual racetrack, right? So you're out there spaced out with a couple different cars at a time. You can't pass anyone. You're not like racing. You're racing for time. And it's basically how fast can you get around the track with other cars similar to yours in your same class. So that's really autocross, and Solo 1 is where I learned pretty much all of my car control. But the thing is, on the same weekend that Solo 1 was running, race was running. So SCCA ran obviously the Solo 1 program and their road racing program. So as I'm, not running, races are running. And so I'm seeing other cars like mine out there racing, like door to door. And I'm like, I want that. Like, how do I do that? So that led me into getting my actual race license. So during this time of the transition from autocross to, road racing and Solo 1, I had wrecked this car. So funny story, it was early February, and we had just put on a brand new coilover suspension on my car at my buddy's garage. the night before, and we were going to the track the next morning to do some test and tune and kind of dial in the suspension settings and everything. It was very cold the next morning, hit some black ice, getting a little too frisky going around some of the corners, driving my car to the racetrack, and I lost control and I went straight into a telephone pole. I'll put some pictures on the screen here so you guys can see that. So that car was done and I had to start over. So I went out and spent a couple $1,000 on a street car, a 94 Honda Civic DX base model, and started destroying the piss out of it. I started just ripping it apart. I took out all the sound deadening, which was a nightmare. I welded in a roll cage, had someone down, a fabrication company down in Portland handle the roll cage, took the motor out, rebuilt the motor, basically made this car into a championship winning race car. And it's kind of funny, there's a term, because race car, and if you're familiar with it, you understand. If you're not, let me explain. So the first car that I had, it was a street car. I was commuting to work in this thing, but I was modifying it, and it was getting uncomfortable to drive on the street. So what do? You buy a truck and a trailer to pull the car and then drive your truck as your daily commuting vehicle. Well, I ended up getting a flat trailer, and then living in Seattle, it rains all the time. So I bought an enclosed trailer. My SUV couldn't tow it, so I bought a diesel pickup truck. Then the house we were living in wouldn't really handle all of the peripherals that you end up accumulating with the race car. So we bought a new house with a detached shop in the back with RV parking on the side, so I could handle the truck, the trailer, and the race car. Crazy, right? All right, so over the next couple years, I could pretty much completely stopped autocrossing because the car was not set up for that at all anymore. So now we're getting into like early mid 2000s, and I was getting faster, and I was campaigning the car all up and down the West Coast, Western Washington, Eastern Washington, Oregon, into California, and was getting pretty fast, winning some races. Always qualifying at the front of the grid, which is nice. I just wasn't winning enough races. I don't think the cojones were quite big enough during the race. Qualifying, I was an animal at qualifying. When it came to race, I think that there was a little apprehension on my part, and I'll be honest, sticking the nose in places where it could go wrong. Guys I raced with, my friends, had no trouble sticking their car in places where you have to really take a chance, like this might end up in a ball of fire. I wasn't willing to always do that, so I didn't always win the races that I probably should have. So towards the tail end of 2005, I was in the points race for the championship, but there was no way. I wasn't winning enough races, so I'm thinking ahead to the next year, 2006. If I couldn't win the championship on race wins, I was winning races here and there, just not enough to actually accumulate enough to win the championship. If I couldn't win the championship on race wins, I could win it on points. So I would show up at every single race, even the races that were garbage that no one wanted to go to, that my competitors didn't show up to. So 2006 is kind of when I went a little crazy. I went a little bonkers, and I spent every last cent that I had on the car and being on brand new equipment every single weekend. I'm on a brand new set of tires every weekend, and I think it was about $600 or $700 every single weekend for brand new tires. I had like 4 sets of tires with me at all times in the trailer. There'd be like a brand new set, heat cycled qualifying set, a set for race, and then a set of wets for when it rained, which was quite a bit. And I just kind of went crazy. And let me explain sort of some of what my weeks were like. So I was in a nice enough position at work to where they knew I raced, and they would let me leave. Most Fridays they let me leave like at noon. So Thursday night, I'm packing the car up, the trailer, ready to go. I'd pull it into work on Friday morning, leave at noon, pull down to, say, Oregon, unload everything, set up camp for the weekend, do the test and tune on Friday afternoon. Saturday was practice qualifying. Sunday was qualifying race. Do all of that, pull home Sunday night, back it up into the driveway, go to bed, get up, go to work Monday, and then get home from work Monday, unload, lift the car in the air, and start replacing everything that needed to be replaced. And that would last me pretty much the whole week. Thursday, it's back in the trailer, and it's rinse and repeat every single weekend. Yeah, so 2006 was a little bit bonkers for me. I got burned out. I got burned out even before the season was over. Like, I knew I had to keep going because I wanted to win the championship, and I'll just sort of bring this out right now, and I'll try to get some better footage of this because it's transparent, but this is my championship winning trophy from 2006. I mean, I did everything. I did every single race that I possibly could. Portland International Raceway is a nice racetrack, and it attracts like Champ Car and Indy Car, stuff like that. So there was I think it was a Champ Car and IRL weekend at Portland, and USTCC was coming to town as a support race, United States Touring Car Championship. And they invited me to be, I guess, a field filler at their race. And it's like, we don't get to race in front of like grandstands full of people. So I'm like, yeah, absolutely. And I was quick enough to compete with them. They were all like 100 to 200 horsepower, like quicker than me. But I knew Portland really, really well, and I was fast. I was really fast at Portland. So they told me at the time, you can run, but if you win, you don't win any money. Like, you can't win. You're a guest in our group. It's like, okay, fine. So qualified really well enough to where I had some of these guys that were faster, like coming over to my pit asking me, like, how do you handle turn 3 and 4? So that was kind of cool. Obviously didn't win those races, but what a cool experience. And these guys are even still around, which I haven't even thought about USTCC in years. I just looked them up and they're still going. So after winning the championship in 06, like I said, I was getting kind of burned out. And I told myself at the time, let me back up a little bit. Like I said, I was married at the time, and I was always gone. Like, I was the absent husband for a lot of that year. I mean, my wife would come to the racetrack, like the local races, like the ones in Seattle, and hang out with, the other wives and girlfriends and stuff. But I mean, come on, how boring is that? I mean, she wouldn't go to Portland with me anymore, and that's fine. I didn't want her to because it's boring. Like, I'm working on the car or I'm out running. It is what it is. It's boring. So, and I was burned out. And I told her, I said, 2007, next year, I'm going to do only local races. I'm not going to travel anymore. We'll just kind of keep it local, keep it tight. And so I ended up doing one race and one, I think, track day. I think I did like a test and tune maybe a week or so before that race. And that was it. I was on track twice that entire year. So the end of 2007, I decided to sell everything. And that's what I did. I sold the car, sold the trailer, all the peripheral parts, tires, engines, transmissions. I sold everything. Okay, really quick, let me explain the level of crazy that I was willing to go. And not just me. Like, if you're racing, this is what you do. So there's rules what you can and can't do. For example, you can't add a limited slip differential to your car. So we're running front wheel drive cars. The transmission in the stock vehicle sends power to the wheel that doesn't have any grip. So when you're going around a corner this way, this tire's loaded, this tire isn't, but this is the one that's getting all the traction and it's just up there spinning. What you want is both tires to spin to get you around the corner. So what a lot of guys would do is weld their differentials. And you can see and hear these guys coming through the pits because they would turn and the outer tire is like trying to catch up. What I didn't want to do that. So what I ended up doing was importing transmissions from Japan that had, from the factory, a limited slip differential, so I would have both tires going. It's legal. I didn't add anything to my transmission. I didn't bolt a part in there that was illegal. It's a Honda OEM factory transmission, just happens to be from Japan, that I imported, that was totally legal. It's just all these crazy things that you end up doing to find the loopholes to go faster and to win. So like I said, 2007, sold everything. I'm still competitive. I still miss driving and racing and being door to door and all of that, trying to beat you into the first turn. I miss that. I still miss that. But it's all the other work that goes along with it that just made it not fun anymore. It was too much. So when I talk about like cars, and I made a video where I just got this, it kind of runs deep for me a little bit. So, you know, a lot of people will call it a midlife crisis car or whatever. You can have that. If that makes you feel cool to label it that way, cool. But for me, I like horsepower. I like a capable vehicle underneath me. And I don't know, I want that visceral experience in a fast car. I don't know what it is. I don't know. It just is something for me. Oh, and I think I forgot to mention that I also won Rookie of the Year in 2000. I'll try to put a picture on the screen here somewhere of old school John holding a trophy for Rookie of the Year in 2000. Yeah, in 2000. I haven't always been into style. I haven't always really cared about this type of stuff that I care about now. And, you know, the whole premise of the channel, the whole foundation of the channel is, you know, lifestyle, look cool, feel cool, like all of the things that that encompass a grown man these days. And I haven't always given a shit about that stuff. It's just kind of happened in my, you know, mid 40s, and I've just kind of stuck with it. And now I do this and I talk to you guys. But maybe this helps you understand some of my background a little bit. I know my way around a garage really, really well. I know cars pretty well. But yeah, I just hope that this was a little insightful as to some of my background. And anyway, if you made it this far in this video, man, you are one of the true legends, and I appreciate you very much. And as always, my friends, thank you so much for watching. Live well, and I'll see you all in the next one. Take care.